siren fades. The gear's back on the rack. But the real conversations, they're just getting started. This is the B1C Podcast, your go-to space for raw, real, and relevant talks on leadership, mentoring, and the ever-changing world of first responders.
912 ambulance, 75-year-old male, back pain, 211 Silver Hollow Road.
Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to B1C.
Hey, good morning and welcome to the B1C Podcast. My name is Paul Wynn. I'm welcoming Chiefs CJ Dickinson, Jeremy Rebok, and Wes Hill. Gentlemen, good morning and Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Morning. Happy New Year.
Morning.
Good stuff. Gentlemen, again, first of the new year, thanks for being here. I do appreciate that. Nice early morning to get us started. So let's do that. Let's get it started. Chief Hill, I'm going to have you open up for us this morning. Let's get the conversation going.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Again, Happy New Year. Yeah, it kind of goes off the latest blog that I wrote on where I guess I really asked the reader, I asked the student of to truly reflect on the leadership and what it means past the swipe of a card. I think many of us have witnessed this within the profession and even around us a little bit, where we bring in influencers versus people of influence. And I think sometimes we try to correct years of decay, and I think we do it the wrong way, meaning that a lot of the changes obviously got to start at the top, and it takes that accountability and authenticity from the top to realize that and to own it. And a lot of times it's a hard pill to swallow. And I imagine a lot of this might be met with resistance as we speak it. But I think that's probably the number one rule that any true leader's got to embrace is looking in the mirror and swallowing the reflection and awareness pill and look at who's really leading the ship. I mean, because we think about leading, yep, it's guiding, providing direction, using your position or title to establish some influence. But are you creating inspiration, or are you just creating noise? And I think that's where we get lost, because when we add the ship to what leader is, do you understand that you're opening the door to kind of a state or position or condition within your environment? Are you really thinking about that? Are you thinking the longevity of what you're trying to speak? And if we're not comfortable in your own skills, capabilities, and acumens, that's where we trip, fumble, and the setbacks begin, especially when we're met with resistance of new ideas and the resistance of change and being adaptive to what we're trying to do. And that's where it just crumbles. And we think, oh, we'll just swipe the card, and here comes said influencer, and they're going to fix all of our problems. But I think data shows that the student only retains less than 30%, 20% when it's a lecture, when it's just, noise. But the most retention's gained with the action, with the teaching, with the practice. So what's the longevity of what you're trying to bring? And once again, the leadership aspect is exhausting. We see it. It's a daily battle. And those teams or leaders are so battle tested that are doing great things, but you don't see what they're doing behind the closed doors or in the darkness or the shadows, because they're constantly developing and improving their craft. They're learning through their biggest resistance of the day or what was their friction. And they're forgetting that it's earned in the work, and like I said, not in the purchase. So yeah, it opens up the doors of a lot of discussion. But I think the first one I'll throw at everybody here would be, what leadership problems are you trying to solve with a credit card? Because that's the first thing I think we need to ask is why do we need said influencer to come in? So I pose that to the group as the first question to really get this going for the new year.
I'll go ahead and grab the rope on that there, Wes. I think, you hit the nail on the head with your blog, and I think I told you that it was a phenomenal piece of writing and so true in today's cultural dynamic. The past couple weeks, have been pretty tough in my organization as well. And I've really had to pull in some senior leadership to run some ideas by. And, you talk about swiping the credit card, right? And when I hear that catchphrase, it's like swiping the credit card for a quick fix, right? And I wholeheartedly believe that nothing that we do is a quick fix, right? You can have several projects on the docket in your strategic plan, but in reality, those projects take 3, 4, 5 years sometimes to get accomplished. So where do we shift our mindset? How do we keep the momentum going? Right, is should be the question, and getting other people involved and having that outward mindset to have those hard conversations. And sometimes it is bringing in an influencer from outside your four walls, which I think is why this 4 individuals right here has been so strong over the years. Is we could go weeks and if not months without talking to each other, but at the end of the day, we know who to pick up the phone and call when we have to bounce an idea off of, and that's important. I just had a meeting with the county operations chief last week, and we hadn't got together for months, and there's some issues happening, and he was bouncing ideas off of me, which was at the end of the day, which was great. Right. And, one of the things that caught me off guard was, something, I never even really thought that to look at that aspect or that problem or that scenario the way that you're reflecting it to look like. And maybe that will drive answers for people, right? So that's just my take on that, Wes.
I think we all need perspective. And I think that's probably one thing that some readers might lose in digesting the words would be, yes, some people of influence are influence. Like look at John. Well, some people might think that he's an influencer. The guy has developed a craft and a phenomenal leadership program that pick up any of his books, start a new chapter, and you could find relevance to your problem to get you, that individual, back on track in your leadership struggles. So yes, there is some longevity in said programs. But as a culture and as an organization, if you're not living those out and practicing those and having conversations about the said product that you swiped, then that's where it's lost. If we're taking said program, we listen to the speaker, wow, I really like that. That's great stuff. Okay, let's set it on the shelf because now we got this other stuff. Then that's where we lose it. If we take it, we incorporate it into our training programs, incorporate it into our command structure, let's say, and in our everyday life, and we speak about it and we listen to be persuaded by our team of what it means, and we grow together from it, then, hey, you know what? That program is going to work real well. And you're going to develop some phenomenal leaders as the longevity of your service goes and the profession goes and the organization goes. I think that's where there's value in it, because I think that's one thing that we see in our time on the enterprise is we get new leadership every 2 years on a cycle. we could say not much stuff is established during that time that they're there. They provide influence. They're an influencer of the drama or the administrative initiatives they're trying to get done. But the said program is developed at a higher echelon of the longevity of what we're trying to do as leadership, because that's where the mission and the vision's established. And we might have our friction with it in the moment, but within our own environments or foxholes, that's where we can get our own perspective or mindset from our team that creates success. And kind of like in the last podcast we talked about, where I said I measure success through survival. And that's another question I got posed to here is what happens when your budget disappears tomorrow because of lack of funding, right? We see it all the time. It gets shut down. I speak about that. I can't get too in depth on that problem set, but the news is the news. But when your monies go away, how strong is your leadership? And I think we all experienced where the noise that we were receiving stopped. And for 40 plus days that we spoke about, that echelon of influence didn't exist. But guess what? We still had to survive. And it was the individual character. It was the individual resiliency of said individuals at each environment that basically got us to the finish line. And we were exhausted, but that's where you know if your leadership is strong or not. When you lose the money, when you lose the motor to your ship, basically, and you're just adrift in the ocean, that's where your team comes together. But CJ, I see you smiling there, brother. You want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one. And I know the four of us talked about it, especially in that middle level where I sit. I voiced to the three of y'all how incredibly difficult it is to ask the guys and the gals to do more than just show up, right? But that's where we lean back into that mission that we know we're all set out to be. And during that time period, I was adamant with the crews with me was get your gear ready, check the trucks, be prepared to respond. Focus on your professional development, your self-development. What things are you working on? What is it that I can do to support you in this unfortunate downtime that we have, because we know we're not progressing. However, it was a good, quiet opportunity for us to really focus on some programs and start laying out some things and being prepared for when that faucet got turned back on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, and I think you two will agree, we're still dealing with challenges that came up as a result of those 40 days. Pay issues, leave issues, service comp issues. Like it just, that hasn't lightened up any. I think that's taken up more of my time right now on shift, is trying to correct things like, pay raises that should have occurred during that time period. Little things, right? But they're big things to the individual that we have to devote a lot of time to now, which is taken away from managing those day-to-day programs and continuing progressive movement forward. So yeah, that was rough. I mean, I'm incredibly proud of the crews that I work with that showed up and continued to do what they needed to do. I'm incredibly grateful, as I always say, for you guys to continue to provide that support in those times and provide answers, right? I think that's one of the things that some leaders missed out on during that period, was an opportunity for full transparency, sharing information. And it didn't always make it down the routine chains of command that it should have been. Some of us had to go out and grab it from other places. But that's where those network pieces, like Rebok was saying, we have different shifting perspectives where we can have those conversations. So that's the short of it from me on that one.
No, because in the absence of leadership, people start their self-sabotage starts kicking in, their self-doubt starts kicking in, it starts decaying their passions and their purpose. And I think we all can agree in this profession, we all have our unique reasons of why we got in, but we have a lot of similarities, a lot of common ground that we share. And I think that's when the struggle kicks in. It doesn't matter what your title is or your level in the organization. If we can have an intimate conversation about passion or purpose, we can keep that shared vision going and a silent understanding that we're in it together. A lot of times when we were going down that dark period, I mean, I tell my team all the time, it's an honor to crawl down this dark, smoke-filled, intense hallway with you, trying to reach whatever seat the fire that we think is still out there, because we've all been there. We know what it's like to make that push, and we know the aspect of team that has to be present to get all that accomplished. And I'm not numb to that. I'm not too far distance from that to where I think we all understand why we do this job. And I think a lot of times too, when we speak leadership to organizations, we see that self-doubt in our audience. A lot of times we see that space. We see that where they're maybe redrawing on the whiteboard of, man, is this the profession for me even? You're opening up doors and eyes that I don't know if I really want to do this anymore. Or, wow, I looked at it a whole differently. So I think those are the tough conversations we have to have with our team to keep the ship alive. Because I think, the biggest concept is if I'm bringing in a speaker, what behavior are you trying to change? What behavior are you trying to change or create influence through inspiration, not manipulation, to meet your needs? I think that's kind of another question to drive, because are you investing money where you're avoiding investing your own time? Because a lot of behavior stuff needs your own time to go have a conversation or put your own leadership on challenge, I guess, with your team to try to get that going. Rebok, you want to chime in, brother?
Well, I look at this in a couple different avenues. You're talking about crawling down a dark, smoky hallway, right? Bringing in an outside speaker, what have you, navigating the credit card swipes, and I'll just go back to the last blog, right? Be careful who you follow.
Yeah.
You bringing in somebody at several thousands of dollars that are just trying to sell you a book that really hasn't navigated a course, hasn't had to prepare the briefings, hasn't had to sit in front of the and answer the hard questions, right? But that all ties back around to supportiveship, right, is what I'll call it. Are you the leader that's doing the things that is being supported? Are you briefing the data to gain that support? Are you briefing the team on the actual required mission to gain that support, right? And we all know that there comes times, right, that sometimes you just need to put something on the back burner in order to achieve the hot topic. And if you are able to 360 vision it, right, you can gain that support by taking a little bit of workload here and taking it off in order to get over that next hurdle. And it's just one of those critical thinking mechanisms as a leader, right, that we talk about all the time, that will maybe help you get down that dark, smoky hallway with the team below you and the team above you, right? Whether you're briefing a city council or you're briefing a council of colonels or what have you, it's kind of that give and take and respect and supportiveship and leadership, where it all comes together.
I think another thing I'll add to that one, Rebok, would be, okay, so if we're going to do a short-term fix and bring in a speaker, okay, well, how does the speaker relate to the struggles that you've dealt with? Leadership's such a broad topic. I get it. And you could almost tie it into us. How does somebody that's not a federal employee come in and learn what it's like to be a federal employee? Like you said, you have to live it, right? If you haven't done it. So, I think one thing that you build strength on is ask the question, like, how many initiatives have your people survived this last year or the years you're trying to fix? When you go down a year of turbulent water and you reach out to mentors that help shape you get where you're at, and they tell you, man, I've never seen this. I don't have a playbook for that. I think I could give you some advice, but I don't know. And they tell you to be sound in the laws and the structure and the standards. They tell you to be sound in that. They tell you to listen. They tell you to explore possibilities, but unless you're sound in those principles, you can't really give you strength to get through that. And it'd be no different than if I tried to go in and talk to somebody at a local level. If I don't know the challenges to deal with, we could talk vague topics, right? We could give you some advice. We could give you some perspective. But the long, enduring battle has to be championed at the local level with individuals sitting down, collaborating, and using their unique perspective, like you gave reference to, Rebok, with talking with your county fire chiefs, right? Of how are we going to get through this? How can we pull together and accomplish some success out of this turbulent water we're in right now? And we saw that individually, where we're just like, dude, what are we doing here? And yes, I think that's where the influencer, if you want to gain influence, would be provide foundation to have confidence in having a conversation and confidence in taking on said challenges. And always asking, do you have the right people in the room to have this conversation? And that's the toughest part of that, because it goes back to assessment and awareness and reflection. Rebok, you want to chime in, brother, again?
Yeah, I think you're 100% spot on there, Wes. And I'll portray this in a little different aspect, right? So. The analogy here is that if you're bringing someone in to talk to your organization about how to take care of your people who have discussed mental fatigue or suicide, right? Mm-hmm. You want to have somebody come in that has gone through that as a leader, as a manager, as a supervisor, that has navigated those muddy waters for months to try and correct someone's health, versus bringing someone who's going to come in and say, oh, well, you need to take pride in your hose beds, right? Completely different end of the spectrum, right? We are lucky that we have those resources available to us and that we know who that we're going to reach out to, right? So, it never seems to amaze me, though, right? There's such a heavy stigma on fire departments across the country, right? Because the news is filled with wrongdoings. Okay. And I don't know if you have read the article. I was just talking about this the other night. There was a fire chief in Florida who just got fired because of hazing, and it was really bad, right? So newspaper headlines across the country, fire department or fire chief, blah, 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 you know, bam, there's a big red X. 3 weeks ago, there was a fire chief who got fired for doing brawl inspections of his female firefighters. Another big red X, right? So when is enough enough? That's the question that I have, right? It's like, man, we just got to do better as a whole across the United States. And I'll just leave it at that.
CJ, you want to jump in on any of that?
Yeah. As we're sitting here talking about this, I think one of the pieces to highlight is the influencers and the quick fix programs. As you wrote, don't care about the history of the patch, right? There's a very specific picture that I grabbed of us working a slide deck in a hotel room at like 9:00 at night, right? When you guys were presenting the very next day, and we were rolling in history of the organizations, right? Let alone all the challenges with the Microsoft Azure shutdown and the flights, delays, and all those things that we had to navigate. And unfortunately, I don't have the picture readily available to blow it up on the screen here for us, but I think that's one of the separators with us. It's not just the quick fix. It's acknowledging that history matters, and we have to understand where you're currently at, where you've come from to get where you're at, and where it is that you're looking to actually go. So again, I wish I had that picture readily available just to hit up here. I don't even know that you two guys know that I grabbed it as we were sitting in that lobby. And we're going back now about 2 years, and it's probably one of our better projects over the years that we've done, up to and including, last evening we got a Happy New Year's message from the chief of that primary organization that brought us in. We're a different breed at the end of the day, and how we present and how we share. And we haven't always walked the walk of those that are bringing us in to speak at their organizations. So it's a little bit disgusting sometimes what we see out there with these influencers.
Yeah. And CJ, I'll just piggyback on that real quick is that I think what makes us unique is we have had to navigate some, excuse my language, very shitty and negative waters over the years. And that has only made us better because we were able to put our heads together and really adapt those high seas and be able to spread the message of reality and truth across those that have chosen to come in front of us.
I think that's the value of the quote unquote leadership, though, Rebok and CJ is I think when adversity is hit, right? The question I'd ask is what are you doing before the storm? We speak about the storm in the blog a little bit, but the storm can be anything that could be administrative, could be real world. But I'll give credit to Paul here. When we were going through adversity, I remember text that Paul sent me. He's like, "How you doing, man?" And I said, "Just dealing with constant chaos." And he, I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically just says, "No, you're not, man. You're in recovery mode." And in the moment, I didn't realize what he was telling me, But the more I digested that, I was like, you know what, I'm trying to get the ship back on the right course, because it is what it is. The chaos has already happened. I need to focus on the recovery state to reset and get us back to normal, whatever normal is. So when we talk about leadership in your develop, right, we always talk about it. What are you doing to prepare? What are you doing to partner? What are you doing to practice? So if I remove myself from a constant state of response, I'd ask yourself, what are you doing before the storm? What are you doing in that mitigating and preventive mode to help you prepare for the response, right? So, if the response happened today, I would ask the listener to this: if the pressure hit tomorrow, what will be the first thing to fail? In your eyes, what will be the first thing to fail? Is it you? Is it your mid-level leaders? Is it policy? Is it budget? Lack of resourcing? Right? I would ask you, what is the first thing that's going to fail? What's going to keep you up in the middle of the night? For me, it was the mental strength and longevity of the team. How long can they go through this noise before something breaks? It was more of that. Had nothing to do with the call. I never questioned their abilities or capabilities, courage. Never. They got a heart of gold. It's how long can their mind take it? And I think that if you keep the human element and the human aspect closest to the chest, when you think about what's the first thing that's going to fail, that should drive why you need to be strong in your leadership acumen and have the courage to have the conversation with your team. CJ, do you want to jump on that, man?
Yeah, I have a question for you on that one.
Go ahead.
How often do you feel leaders exclude the human factor in their decision making?
All the time. I can't give you set examples, but it really is all the time. And sometimes you have to make a decision to start a head fire, if that makes sense, right? So I use some wildland perspective a little bit. If I'm dealing with a head fire, all right, we can talk about the strategy and tactics to suppress it. But sometimes I got to put a little fire on the ground to deal with it, right? Flush it out, change it, change the chemistry of it, change the science behavior of it, because when the fires meet, guess what they're going to do? They're going to die out. They're going to leave a little patch of grass in the middle. That's reality. So I think I make every decision with the human element in mind, because I always say it's exhausting. I listen to be persuaded, because if I'm not hearing the right thing or the right signal in the room, I say, I don't have the right person. We're missing something right now. And we'll pause the conversation. And I think it's just years of seeing ego destroy culture to where you finally embrace it, that you got to subdue your own ego. And by no means am I saying I'm perfect or trying to influence you or create noise that says that. But you have to be humble enough to admit that you're horrible, or humble enough to say you're the failure. And if you can't say that in front of your team, that's rule number one. I'll own many things of like, nope, I screwed this one up. I should have listened to a captain. I should have listened to a firefighter on the back step that was speaking noise all along. Yeah, when you work in a domain where, let's just say, war has developed their vision, you learn from those leaders in those environments of how you need to be humble real quick. And you don't always have the right ideas. I mean, without saying it, I work on an installation where ego is strong enough in the historical background. If you go back and Google Custer, the rest will fall into place, man. I mean, I live it every day. I come to work. I still see the historical remnants of that ego disaster. So, Yeah, that was long-winded there, CJ, but that's a good question.
Listen, it's a valid point, right? And you hit it, that you listen to be persuaded. You take the time to hit that backstep fireman, because and I'll challenge you that it may not actually be noise that backstep fireman is speaking. It may be the truth.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the delivery that becomes the challenge, because they haven't taken the time to learn and understand how to convey that message in such a way that the leaders listen. So I challenge you that it's not always noise.
Yeah.
But to kind of flip on that too, would you hang on, let me reframe this. I'm going to 2 words: recency bias. Right? I'm trying to figure out how to frame this question correctly, because I think it is a little bit of a challenge too when we're always when we're taking the time to listen, to be persuaded. I wouldn't necessarily use persuaded, but we want to understand all angles, the whole 6 sides of the fire, right? We want to know what the challenges are from all around, so we can make an effective decision. Do you feel that recency bias comes into play sometimes in the decision making then?
Absolutely. But I think it goes back to the old adage of you're only good as you were in your last fire, right? They speak it all the time. So victory disease is a true thing. And so is decision fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're humble to understand what those principles are and humble to put that into your decision-making process, you'll see where the human element needs to be part of your feedback loop.
Yep.
And it doesn't go any further than that. And that's the element of preparation, an element of partnering, an element of practice, is you have to do that. Because let's face it, we survived 40 days of a storm. I am not going to apply that bias for a potential next storm, because the next storm, the waters could be more turbulent, the wind could be out of a different direction, and you have to have your head on a swivel. And that's the same principles of going to every fire of you can't operate the way you did last time. We could have a foundation. We can have some foundation of thought, but beyond that, that's where your experience and wisdom has to come into play. And the biggest aspect of that is you have to listen. I think I spoke this the last podcast of, if not, but I'll say it again, but we are surrounded in our world with the concept of command and control. We hear it all the time, called C2, command and control, command and control, command and control. Well, when adversity hits, you're not in control of anything. And General Mattis and the Marines have fostered kind of what Colonel Boyd has done with the OODA loop of command and feedback. We could have authority, we could have some responsibility with the command element, but you got to have the feedback in your decision loop. And I think that's the biggest thing that we fail at, is we think the control is where success is achieved, and it's the feedback is where success is achieved. And that's a hard one to swallow. Paul, do you want to jump in on that one, brother?
Yeah, I ran out of stuff to write on here. So probably best to throw some thoughts out. Visible leadership. I think that is a part that is lost in many organizations. Leadership needs to be visible. You mentioned words like collaboration, and CJ came back in and kind of spoke about that noise. And I like to call that organizational intelligence. As you're talking about listening, that's what we need to do. We're not going to have all the answers. If I said do a size up, we could all probably do a size up off the back of our hand. The next decision.
Thought we lost him there for a second.
Yeah.
His battery and his radio is going dead.
Technical glitch.
Yeah. No, can you repeat there, command?
We need an upgraded Motorola system here.
Yeah. You guys lose me? Is that what it was?
I don't think the AI wanted you to speak anymore.
Yeah. May have been that, right?
So the storm hit, Paul. Let's readjust fire. Where are you at?
All right. So the only thing I was saying is being that visible leader. You mentioned a few things there, but if I just said about the word size up, we can do size up on the fire ground. We know what that looks like. We know how to perform it. But if I was to go into an organization today and I said, hey, give me a size up of your organization, they would probably stutter. They would probably have issues. They probably couldn't conduct that size up. And that's where I was talking about that organizational intelligence, right? We look for things like CAN reports. We look for size ups and PARs and all these different things on the fire ground, but do we do it for the organization? Do we do it for our people? And as CJ mentioned about that noise, and Wes, you said the feedback, that is critical for us. That is important for us to have that. You know, you said collaboration. Collaboration is not just from external stakeholders, but it's from our folks inside. Where are they at? What things do they bring to that table to help us out? Things that they're seeing that we're not seeing, right? So we have to go back into that. I think that's incredibly important. One of the other things I wrote down in there too was that if the noise starts to increase, what are we doing about it? What do we do as leaders or in the leadership roles to address it? Some folks will go along with it. They find it easier just to be part of the noise instead of part of the solution. And I think that's what takes some organizations down the wrong path, because they're maybe afraid. I'll simply say it that way. They're afraid to ask for help or go out to, our mentors and sit there and say, listen, this is where I'm at. And maybe I'm not looking for you to give me the answer or the solution, but listen to me, hear me. And maybe I'm going to find that within myself. I may have the answer, but sometimes we need to do that. So I don't want to go in reverse on many of the conversation. I just wanted to just kind of bring that up. I think in the analogies of it, the visible leadership is key, but don't just be there. You have to get back to something that Jeremy mentioned before, and it's finding that passion, that purpose, the why we're here. I think it's important for us to get them to understand. Listen to your folks. Go out there. Don't be part of the noise. Be part of that solution path, right? Be open to that. The transparency is key. But they also have to understand that the humility of who we are and the humbleness that we have to be as leaders must be present. If it's not, you're just a badge in a room. That's all you are. You're just a figure. You're not part of making things better. So, like I said, I have a ton of notes, ton of things you guys have all said. So I'm just going to let this conversation keep going the way it is. But appreciate that.
Your comment is wonderful because it poses the question of like, all right, so who if you're at the top, okay, cool. Who supports your authority besides your title? I think that's the greatest question is who supports your authority besides your title, right? Like who's going to follow you when they're not required to? Who's choosing to follow you because of the right thing you're providing the organization? It goes back to the listening and the feedback. A lot of times I don't want to have the answer. I truly do. I hate having the answer. So I kind of want to ask, do you have clarity and confidence to operate in this decision right now? What you're about ready to go take on, whatever it is, the administrative fire you're about ready to deal with, or if I get a phone call from one of my battalion chiefs and they're like, hey, we got this incident going on. Okay. You got confidence right now? We good? You got clarity of what's going on? Yep. Okay, let's operate. Be confident. Because I think when we lose the confidence, we lose hope, we lose faith, we lose everything. We lose the focus. And that an organizational intelligence, man, that's where the clarity really comes in. Because if your team cannot operate with confidence and clarity, they're in the dark. And everything starts shutting down. That's where the trust vanishes. That's where, your influence goes silent. Yeah, that's where it gets really hurtful. CJ,
Well, I think that's, I know you're going to go to CJ on this, but that's the part that I think we somewhat struggle with is some leaders take action, they put things in motion, and then they wait for the noise to know if it's going to work. That's their feedback. That's, you have to have a different metric to figure out what that's going to be. Yeah. And you can do it from the front end. And then again, that collaboration part, be part of the process, or we can be part of the problem. That's a decision. Every leader has the ability to make a decision. And if it's not the right decision, it's what's your next step, right? Now you can do it alone. We don't want that. That's not going to work out for you. You're not going to last long if you're doing it alone, right? So I think that's just part of that process. So CJ, I didn't mean to jump in on you, but I just want to add that.
No, you're good. I was just thinking, I have a guy that I'm actively trying to break this mentality of it's okay to be wrong as long as you're confident. Well, that's dangerous, right? That is absolutely dangerous. I can't have that on my crew. That's unacceptable. It's okay to be wrong, but I need you to ask for help and be, Wes, your word, humble. Be humble to acknowledge that you don't have the full confidence. You're willing to go full gusto, though, because you want to do it. But that's I love it and hate it all at the same time because he's just willing to go. But to break that, it's been a difficult thing to break because it's a younger member that thinks he has a lot of it figured out and doesn't yet. So I fully support that. Do you have confidence in clarity? Fully support it. I also fully support the ability to be wrong, but you have to be able to acknowledge that you're wrong and course correct as necessary, listening to the appropriate feedback. You guys wholeheartedly know, like, I'll get a thing and I'll call you and be like, hey, what do you think about this thing? And you're like, yeah, but did you think about this? Well, shit, no. Let me reassess, work through it. But I do have a question that I'm going to bring this back all around and bring it back into the blog specifically, because I think one of the things that I picked up from is the idea that leadership is construction. It's not just steering the ship, right? And Wes, you hit that in there. So what tools do I need to focus on picking up to add to the toolbox for that construction piece, right? Like, I know this problem set of it's okay to be wrong as long as you're confident in wrong, and I'm trying to break this. I haven't brought it to you guys yet because I've been working through it. We've been doing some coaching and some mentoring things, but looking at it from this angle now of leadership as construction, what tool am I perhaps missing in my toolbox that I can employ on this problem set to have a good outcome?
I think the greatest tool outside of preparation. So let me give you some context. So if I need to prepare in our job, in our profession, right? There's this organization with the alphabet soup of NFPA, and they kind of have this thing called JPRs, right? And they kind of think, hey, this is a good idea that you know this. And I think this is a good skill to have, a knowledge to have. Okay, that's some foundation. And there's some structured classes where an institution might see the rewards of the financial gain of students sitting in the classroom. Okay, great. But what did the pupil really get from that? What did the pupil get from the teacher in the moment of trying to learn to be a better officer? The book only goes so far. So as we prepare and we build our foundation, which is an element of construction, I think the greatest tool is the power of developing good questions, and then the courage to seek out the right individuals to ask said questions to, because that leads into partnership. And then that's where you can develop the clarity you need in the construction element, because there's an author, right? The 15 Laws of Growth, chapter 1, law of intentionality. Well, define intentionality. If I'm an athlete playing football, intentionality means that I'm going to get the first step in the ground and then my second step in the ground, and I'm going to beat the living crap out of somebody across the line of scrimmage. As an offensive lineman, that was intentionality, was to move with purpose. But I also had foundation of a playbook, of a scheme, understanding the strategy and what I have to do to where I could move with intentionality. So yes, I need a plan of action. But the greatest thing of intentionality is you need a baseline of logic to operate within that intentions. So I would ask, are you preparing yourself in the right domain of logic? If I want to be a fire chief, great, go to the National Fire Academy. There's going to be people, there's going to be knowledge, there's going to be examples of historical processes that have led up to what we're doing. Go read the book on fire officer, chief officer. That's great. But when you prepare a partner, now you put it into practice, that is where you have to adapt to the failures like you're speaking to where we want people to fail. That's a tough thing to say. I mean, trust me, I've had to learn that. That's a tough one to learn and embrace. But do you learn from your failure, or are you repetitively failing at the same thing? Because if you're repetitively failing at the same thing, once again, Jerome Mattis has said this, that's breakdown of discipline. You're not learning from what you're failing at. And sometimes you need the right person in your loop to bring the clarity of why you're failing. Because it goes back to lifting your lid. If I want to lift my lid, my capabilities and my abilities to be a better leader, you need the right people around you in that circle to give you the perspective to really go. And it goes back to the chief officer thing. To be a good fire chief, you need to go find some mentors outside of the fire service in the executive world. Bottom line, because if you're just learning from other fire chiefs or other chief officer books and you're not investing in energy or mentorship value into executives that know business, know political savvy, and will lift your lid in the credibility world, that's where you gain success, is that outside the influence. Rebok, you want to chime in on that one, man? Or do you have a follow-up, CJ?
I got a follow-up challenge on a growth mindset for you, brother.
All right, go ahead.
So if you make a mistake and it's not successful the first time, is that actually a failure?
No.
So if you do it a second time and it's still a mistake, is that then a failure?
Did we gain some ground though?
No, you didn't gain any ground.
Okay. I would go back to I would say before you assess it as a failure, go back to the assessment of what truly happened, right? The debrief, the after action of what really happened, and really challenge the depth of where you look to be like, well, shoot, because just because we fail and we think we develop a new strategy, well, we're going to have continuous failure. But I think it's the whole mindset of fix versus your mindset. Are you fixed in your decision making, or are you adaptive? And it's all in how you perceive the failure, evaluate the failure, and then put that circle of growth back into the process. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I just wanted to challenge you on that with the failure piece, right?
That goes back to the power of people, because if CJ, if we're working through a problem and we're narrow-minded and we're so narrow-minded and tunnel vision that you and I are the only ones doing this, and we keep failing. We're like, all right, well, let's go back. Let's add a different thing in the formula. We'll keep failing. Crap. Okay. Bring Rebok into the call or Paul on the call. Dude, you're in response. You're in recovery mode right now. Fix your mindset, like we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I am in response. There is no response. The emergency is well over. Well over. Now, if you put your mindset in recovery and look at it from that angle, you're like, okay, now I have better clarity to operate with confidence in the moment. And that is the power of people. And once again, it goes into the power of, if all you're doing is surrounding your people with yes men or women and not putting anybody that's going to challenge you, or you're only focused on fire service knowledge and you're not putting your mind outside the fire service to that executive acumen like we spoke about, that's where you're not going to grow.
Nailed it. Love you, Chief. Thank you.
I love you too, man. Rebok, what do you want to say, man?
Just, key comment here is that no good decision or good collaboration is done immediately. It takes time, sometimes 2-3 weeks, sometimes longer, right? Just depends on the critical nature of what you're dealing with. And sometimes those key communication factors are going to be, they're not going to happen right away, right? Asking the right questions. One of the biggest things that has helped me over the years through my many failures of shotgunning decisions is, I'll grab a cup of coffee and go out and stand on the engine bay floor for 10 minutes while the guys do their apparatus checks. I don't say a word, but damn it, I learn a lot in that 10 minutes, so which could force your brain to fire on all cylinders to be like, oh, do we have a problem, or are things great? And then throughout the day, that 10 minutes down on the engine bay floor will pique some questions that you have maybe, and then you can start asking the right questions to the right people, right? Which can help you overcome some of those challenges. But the key here is nothing positive is going to happen within 5 minutes, right? It's going to take time.
So I'd kind of pose a question real quick here, round robin. So we talked about the construction element, CJ, and learning from our failures to develop our leader acumen. Not many people see the habits that really make us grow. So I would pose the question, what habits do you put into your normal routines to reflect on the day or week, let's leave it short term, and give you some hope or focus to grow from that frustration right now? Rebok, you're first, man.
What are some habits?
Yeah. What do you do? You want me to go first? Maybe I should go first. That way
I have a lot of habits, man.
Yeah. Clean habits.
But it took me, and I'm not going to lie, right, Wes? It took me years to get comfortable, right? Specifically as a chief officer. I won't even say fire chief. I'll just say chief officer, because, you go from captain, then to battalion chief. Responsibilities continue to grow. You go to assistant chief, then deputy chief, and then fire chief. And next thing you know, there's days where the weight of the world just is got you weighed down, man. And then you become silent. You sometimes feel like you're in a dark place, right? And real quick, that brings me up to, I wanted to piggyback on your one comment about, fire service leadership books and reaching outside to, business acumen professionals and stuff. Listen, there's not one fire officer 1 through 4 class. There's not one NFA class. There's not one fire service book that I have read in my 33 years that has given me the answers to all my problems. I'm
said the
just
quiet
going to
part
lay that out there right now.
You said the quiet part out loud. You can't do that.
You know, every aspect of this job will sometimes make you scratch your head. But in all honesty, some of my daily routines, right, is hitting the weight room, right? Kind of getting, my mind right first thing in the morning with the guys. You can learn a lot about the personal, struggles outside of work from your team members through the gym. Coffee in the morning with the guys at the kitchen table before the shift change, out on the engine bay floor, that kind of stuff. And I tell you what, one of the things that I always think about, from my past fire chief role, one of the things I really hone in on is the way Paul used to do his accountability report on his whiteboard in his office. And that was his daily routine. There's not one day that I would not walk in his office and not know what's going on with his programs, right? But that was his mental challenge to himself, in a way for him to step outside of his comfort zone to communicate the things that were going on and the things that he wanted to accomplish, which was kind of like a yearly running status check, right? And I miss that sometimes, because not everybody can grasp that aspect of whiteboarding things from step A to step Z, right? And I've called you several times, and you've hit me up several times at the end of the workday, and you're like, hey, give me a call on your way home. Don't take this frustration home with you. And, that has become a daily thought of mine, is like, okay, I don't need to talk to anybody today or what have you. But when I leave the office, one of my mental checklists is, hey, do I need to talk to somebody on the way home today? Right. And that I'm very thankful for you, because not only are you in depth into the stressors of the job, but also realize that you're a sounding board, right? And for that, I've really come to love that about you. And I've started to do that with some of my other folks too. Is like, when you leave here today or tomorrow morning for your off-duty tour, leave work at work, and having those candid conversations with my leaders is like, if it's here today, it'll be here in 3 days when you come back, if they're off on RDO or what have you. So, as leaders, we need to kind of think about that as well for our folks, and try and give that mental break to them, and allow that to be part of our daily routine as well.
Oh, it's very powerful, brother. No, excellent. CJ, how about you, brother?
Daily habits. Well, you guys all know I have a habit of going off grid every now and then, completely, and then I get harassed by Paul because, look, as he's shaking his head no. But no, sometimes it's just disconnecting. Fortunately and unfortunately, two things can be different but simultaneously true. In the positions that we sit in, I think one of my goals for 2026 is to employ more of the Eisenhower matrix, which just got reintroduced to me again, right? What's important and urgent, what's important but not urgent, what's not important and urgent that you can delegate, or what's something that you can just delete completely off of your task list. And Paul and I were having this conversation on what was that? Wednesday, I think. Wednesday we had a pretty healthy conversation about what our team goals look like for our team, what we're working towards, and as well as personal goals. I think that's something that we forget about when we're on shift, because we're so essentially focused on supporting our team that we don't do such a great job at supporting ourselves individually. So again, we're back to those phone calls, those check-ins, like, hey, do I need to talk to somebody? And Paul's probably more of my sounding board, and both of you guys have gotten messages from me like, hey, I got to talk just to work through something. So I definitely do that. But one of the things that I have been working through here to reset as a habit is to close out every day to relook at what I accomplished that I set out to. What still remains on the to-do list? Is it truly something that is important and has to be done like in the next 24 to 48 hours? Or is it something that I can put a pin in? As we were closing out, the holiday downtime, right? I got hit with a task and I was like, yeah, listen, I'm not doing that until after the 5th of January. Just not. Like, yes, it's important, but it's something that I can schedule. And because of the timing that we're hitting in right now, and we all know what our processes are, it makes zero sense for me to put in time and effort into this task, because I'm not going to be able to accomplish it due to people not being in the office. And even then, after January 5th, when am I really going to be able to fully execute? Maybe sometime after the 15th of January, right? So, acknowledging where some of those challenges are. But yeah, just focusing on the to-do list and applying that Eisenhower matrix is what I'm rolling into 2026 with, to set those habits and reprioritize truly the things that actually matter. And you guys, sitting a little bit higher, but you still have the people walking into your office saying this is a problem. It's their problem, right? It's their urgency that they're putting. It has to happen right now, with no consideration to what other fires are going on, theoretical fires that are going on that we're working to put out and control. So working on a couple of those new habits in 2026 as we're rolling in, to say the least. So I love the question. I'm just not fully set on what my habits are that I'm working towards as we hit the ground running here, first thing in the morning, getting with you guys. But, yeah, 2026 is going to be a little bit different, I think.
I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at yourself if you go back to work and start journaling for a month. You'll find out what your habits are that make you either effective or not effective. And then you'll be able to do self-reflection at the end of that month and say, hey, well, this really does work, but maybe this doesn't. And maybe I need to shift to the right a little bit and just add a different technique. But that, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at what your daily habits are.
Is now a good time to let you know I already got my green book set up.
There you go.
Let's start 2026 with a brand new, fresh book, already numbered and table of contents. The bullet journal set, brother.
Check mark, man.
Yeah, off the list. Done.
No, journaling. So everybody does it differently, man. But I think that's probably another whole other podcast.
Yes.
Is how you journal, because the short and sweet aspect of that is we talk about the blogs we write. Well, guess what? Personally, I write because that's the garbage in my head in the moment. I have to write to get clarity in the moment. That's how that's how I operate. And everybody operates different. And I think that's probably light bulb went on. That's the next topic.
Yeah. That's the next blog coming out of Wes Hill, everybody.
No, you got your phenomenal notebook, right? Which is a whole process of itself, and I could never replicate it. I carry note cards. So within my planner that I have, I carry note cards to where I can put it in there, and that's where I capture a thought, a question, an idea that leads me into where I need to grow or research. But this is just me. I don't deal with the apps. I don't. I'm old school. That's why I always got a pencil and a note card, because that never fails me. And everybody's different, but journaling there's so much value to that. And we talked about the construction aspect, and that's really where growth occurs. So I'll just pause on that one because there's so much to dive into.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going to jump back on it. I know we're a little bit over, but it's fine. You saw my black book that I used when we were doing that training program, and you were like, "Oh my God!" Right? So those notebooks were great, but the one of the challenges I found with that notebook was I had so much information that I put in there, right? And then I had to remember what book it was in to go back to, right? And I tried, I did my best to label them so I knew where it was. And, I tried running one notebook completely for everything. And then in 2023, I did switch to an app, right? And, this is part of Paul and I's conversation. What I realized as, resetting for 2026 here, our B1C notebook was from 2023 through 2025. Like, oh my God, there is a plethora of information in that notebook. And it's searchable, which is fantastic. And it'll, the AI reads my handwriting and all those things. But, I have it on my laptop, it's on my iPad, it's on my phone, so I can capture notes on any one of my devices. Fantastic. But like I said to Paul, I'm like, we're starting a fresh notebook, 2026 B1C notebook, right? Separate. And that, the thing that I love about the app now, and aside from, what I'm going to use my green book at work for, right? Because it's at work and we know how some of those records are. I can put that in my drawer and we're good. We have it. But in my app, what I did was I started another journal notebook and put about 20 prompts in, just lead in and out, right? So, one of those things, one of those habits, on a reflection of the day that I want to work on in 2026 is going back to journaling off a prompt. So I have them preloaded. I'm already set to rock, but separating some of these things, but still having access all in one place for me, and using technology to my advantage. Yeah. And I think that's part of that tools for the construction, right?
Oh, outstanding. Paul, wrap it. Close up this loop of habits, brother.
I think when my time comes and I expire on this earth, I will be buried in a coffin that is a whiteboard. Because I'll just still have thoughts and things to still put down in the afterlife.
Make it to where we could write on the outside of it, can you? I
gotta tell you, I'm bad with the whiteboards. I'm good, but for a lot of people, they don't care for it. But it gives me the ability to make my changes and thoughts on a quick swipe of the pen. If I have to erase and readjust, I do. And CJ busted my chops quite a bit about AI. 2026, I'm driven by AI assistance because of that, because things will come to me, a thought will come to me, and I'll be like, okay, I could be in the moment from driving in the car, flying on the plane, going somewhere to do something, and I can quickly just be like, hey, put this in my journal, to this program. And then it summarizes for me. So topically, right, not to stay on the habits, our whole episode was based on leadership and that it's not built on quick fixes, right? Leadership has to go beyond the quick fix. And I think when you brought up about habits, there's a lot of self-reflection. In your opening statements of this podcast, you talked about that, having that courage to look in the mirror and say, hey, what am I doing good? But more importantly, what am I doing not so good? Where am I failing? And where do you get that information from? Where do you find that? And you're talking about habits. Rebok, you brought up how you can just grab the cup of coffee and go out there amongst the crews, and you're reflecting, you're absorbing, you're doing that. You're validating what's good and maybe what's not so good within the organization. In the morning at a truck check, who's there, who's not. We're not looking for punitive things and actions to occur, but what do I need to get folks engaged? How do I get them to not just come to work to punch in and punch out, but love this job? Because we do. I think that is probably one of the greatest challenges we have is how do we get, as leaders, how do we get that back to our folks? Is it an influencer that's going to do that? They may motivate them, but they're not going to make the change. They may give them a brief moment of inspiration, but it's not going to make the change. Influencing is just that, but it doesn't always mean it makes change, because sometimes we can have bad or poor influences, things that don't accurately represent who we are, what we do, or the people we serve. So what I truly love about the question should be reflected on not just a morning habit or daily habits, but doing what you said in the very beginning, Wes, is doing that self-reflection to really just take a moment to see what type of leader we are and what leadership values we bring to the organization. Starting a journal, seeing those things, I agree. Seeing areas that we can look at and say, we're not doing so well here. But the more important question is, what are we going to do about it? Don't become part of the noise. Listen to it. Get to understand it. And if you have to do something like pick up the phone, call any one of us, call your own mentors, do it. Communication is key to our success. If we don't talk, we're going to struggle and organizations will fail. So I know it's a little off from just the habits, but my habits were doing those things. Right into the board, see where I'm at, go out and talk to the guys, see where the crews are at. What can I do? CJ's key thing. He says it's almost every shift. What can I do to help you do your job? What can I do to help you?
Do we lose
Lose
Paul
him again?
Do we need to help him?
I think he needs some additional
Nope,
support.
Mayday.
I just put another quarter in, so we're good for at least another 10
All right,
minutes.
let's fast. Put the quarter in.
I'm good. Yeah, they only limit me so much, and I only have a couple quarters left. So
All right, we gotta wrap it up. So, no, I'll wrap it up real quick because, look, I got an hour drive home. That's one benefit that I have of a habit, and I have an hour drive to work. So I have time that I can get lost in my thoughts, and I think that has so much value to where if you're able to challenge yourself, it's a habit I developed playing sports, and the concept of film review and self-analysis of you playing and practicing and growing from it. But like I talked about, I like to journal, I like to write because to remove the problem in my head. And I think that's probably where the greatest power of AI is that I teach is use AI to help give you clarity to your problem. One of the greatest prompts that I like to put in there is pick your problem. All right. Keep it simple, but pick your problem. Go to your AI tool and go, hey, who from history can give me perspective on my problem I have right now? And I use the word history because nothing new in leadership is nothing new under the sun, man. We've heard it before. It's a phenomenal quote. I just can't give power to who it goes to right now. But the problem you're dealing with is not new. You just haven't discovered the right clarity to the historical perspective in the moment. And I think that's where AI comes in as a great partner to be like, well, and this is going to sound foolishness, but it'll pull up stuff from Abraham Lincoln or Eisenhower, like you spoke about, or Washington, or like, hey, who in the fire service could give me perspective? It might start bringing up articles, right? But that gives you power and a tool to go read and discover and grow and learn, and most importantly, unlearn what you need to stop doing, and then restructure the learning from there. And that's the construction element, is that learn, unlearn, and relearn something. And I think that's the most powerful thing that somebody could do, because you don't know where your pathway is going to go, what you're going to discover. And it's going to sound cliche-ish, but it's endless opportunities. And I think that's the most power that no influencer will ever give me. None. You know, you put your quarter in, you talk, and you do your delivery, but you are not speaking anything that hasn't already been taught somewhere. And that's the most powerful thing. But we have gone extremely longer than we wanted to go, but I think this has been very powerful. And Paul, I just want to pitch it back to you real quick before we wrap it up, man. If closing thought and round robin, if there's anything.
All right. Hopefully my quarter will let me get the full conversation in here.
Hope so.
Get turned off again. I would just say for anyone in those leadership positions, based on titles, ranks, whatever that may be, I really don't care about that too much. Start your day with a simple question: who can you inspire today? And at the end of your tour, at the end of your day, ask the same question by simply saying, who did I inspire today? Who did I help today get better at who they are and what they do? That's, I think, a strong maybe takeaway from something that we looked at in an episode talking about leadership beyond a quick fix. Take your time. You can't do it all in one day, and you can't do it alone. So outside of that, Wes, I will simply say fantastic blog. It inspired me. It was thought-provoking. You got me thinking about many different areas, things that I've done, things that I still want to achieve based on that blog. So I offer you that statement of gratitude. Thank you. Great, fantastic article. And for anybody that listens to this podcast, I'll put the link to that blog again. Get back in there and take a look at it, read it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, go again. Yeah, Chief, go.
I just want to say it's great being here with you guys today, and hope you all have a good start to 2026. I'm headed out tomorrow on a cruise, so I'll be laying low for a little over a week.
Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Definitely enjoy it, Chief. Thank you, guys. It's going to be a banner year for us. So we hit 2026, and we'll see you on the next one.
Oh, for sure. Happy New Year, everybody.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Thanks again. Thank you for tuning in to the B1C podcast. Appreciate Wes Hill, CJ Dickinson, and Jeremy Rebok for being here. And as CJ mentioned, again, we'll see you on the next one.
That's it for today's episode of the B1C Podcast, where professionals come together to share ideas, challenge perspectives, and strengthen the world of first responders. We'd love to hear from you, your questions, your stories, your insights. Connect with us online and keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and keep leading from the front. This is B1C, signing off.